If you are watching this video, I know you love the Lord and His church and probably have a passion to reach people far from God by multiplying churches into new locations. And my passion aligns with your passion. My name is Dr. Anita Eastlack, and I am the Executive Director of Church Multiplication and Discipleship for the Wesleyan Church. God calls all kinds of people to plant churches. Let me say it a different way. It is God who is the one who calls people to plant churches. Young people, older, trained ministers and lay people from every ethnicity and culture, in both men and women. I was born into a church planting family, and my parents were lay people who included us as children in the ministry work. And then God built on that experience and called me into church planting ministry as an adult. So over the years, I have encountered the challenges of being a pastor, and then the more intense challenges of planting. Sometimes those challenges are directly related to being a woman. Sometimes I end up realizing that it was just my perception, and everyone has those same challenges. For example, starting out, I felt too young and inexperienced, as though I'm just a girl. Well, anyone can feel too young. I have mentored many young men to be bold and courageous and fight that feeling of thinking you are too young and inexperienced. But yes, there are specific challenges to being a woman in ministry, but I think they're talked about more often. I have also experienced many advantages along the way, and I would like to address those. I haven't always been this confident. God has opened my eyes along the way with experiences. Sometimes I discovered, this is another reason why God would, of course, call both men and women, because His lost children need both. Remember, we are called to go and make disciples as church planters, not to go and get Christians to fill our church plants. For example, people who we might call de-churched might come back to church more easily with a spiritual sister or mother because their past experience with an abusive father figure or a difficult church experience hurt them. And then sometimes reaching people is a trust issue, and they can trust a spiritual mother more than a spiritual father. For some unchurched people, they are more inspired by a church that is led by a woman, reassuring them that God doesn't have a problem with women. Some people have come right out and said, I always thought that God was a male chauvinist, and they're relieved to find out that I'm ordained. Many young people look for churches that are egalitarian because that's how they relate in their marriages. Keep in mind, church planting is about reaching people far from God. We want conversion growth rather than transfer growth from traditional churches. I lead a group of Wesleyan multipliers who are women, and as of this recording, we have 90 in the group. And I asked some of them if they would share their experiences where they've been a woman pastor planter and share some of the advantages that they found. Pastor Danielle wrote, "Women are by nature more relational and foster connectedness within community, both inside and outside the church." Pastor Melody shared, "Women often have more experience traditionally working with children and families, and I think a strong children's ministry is the heart of the church." Pastor Bernie wrote this, "I have a network of churches inside prisons, and connecting with the male offenders, they are from a world where men have let them down, and the people they could really count on were the women in their lives. The matriarchal hierarchy in their households carries over in a positive way for my discipleship relationships." And so Pastor Bernie continues on, "So being a woman has been surprisingly an advantage inside the prison because they listen to me." And then finally, Pastor Katie said, "The unchurched are used to women in leadership and the roles of authority in the marketplace. So it's not an issue for them in the same way as it is for the traditional church people." So for me, I'm thankful to be in the Wesleyan family because we have a high view of Scripture, we have a high view of the church, and a high view of the call to ministry. And I'm equally thankful that we read the Scriptures understanding that God is the one that assigns the spiritual gifts of leadership and preaching, and that we are living on this side of the second chapter of Acts, where Peter declared at Pentecost that the prophecy in the book of Joel has been fulfilled. In the last days, God is pouring out his Spirit on all flesh. Both his sons and his daughters are prophesying. So, whoever you are, follow God's call on your life, and let's reach our generation with the hope and holiness of Jesus Christ.